All right. This is Reaver, Augment Reaver. There's some lore, and it talks about uh, Iskandar. Uh, I believe, and I'm gonna be cheeky here. I believe she was an Olphidian. I think the first Reaver was an Olphidian. That was maybe old lore, and maybe that's not the case now. But the first Reaver ever was an Olphidian because the only things that we can learn are sorcery or are rogue and adept. So this is the two fighting pools, okay? And they saved the two magic pools and the two fighting pools for the last augments. And Reavers are awesome because they're essentially just I am a straight fighter. If you want to like there's being a knight and that involves like paladin and being magic, like which is the last video we just covered, and it involves being magic, right? You're talking about spirit um and honor and duty. Well, duty for the most part. Reaver is more about honor, like individual honor, as opposed to a duty. There is a little bit of duty. There's kind of a mix of roleplay between the two, but like Reavers are very different from Paladins, and we're gonna get into why. Or I'll sort of be talking about it, but Reavers basically they just like fighting stuff. If you're somebody who really likes fighting, Reaver is the way for you. And Reavers are awesome and really good. For the longest time, I was planning on being a Reaver, and then I kind of went a different way. But Reavers are sick. Uh, and Reavers are a fraternity. Any Reaver may induct another Reaver into the fraternity, and Reavers are very much. If a Reaver fights another Reaver, they very much are like, this is a one-on-one fight. Like this is a, I'm going up against this other Reaver, and please nobody interrupt. Like it's very cool. And what it is it you have a sword through the eye. This can also be represented by drawing a sword that goes through the eye of the character. So if you so a depiction of a sword through an eye. So technically you can have like a shape of an eye and then put a sword through it. And typically this is just literally a T, like a lowercase t is how they represent it. They don't get too articulate about being a reaver. Um, but essentially you put a lowercase t to represent a sword. And most I think I literally haven't seen a reaver that doesn't just put it through their own eye. Like that's what they do. And it's a tattoo sometimes, and for lore reasons, sometimes it's a tattoo. Um, Other times it's a brand, like they branded their own like skin with a like an iron brand that they heated up in a furnace or like a fire, and they branded themselves. Like it's pretty sick. Uh, Yeah, so like they get a sword through their eye. That's what makes you a Reaver, which is super sick, and it's unmissable. You cannot miss the fact that somebody's a Reaver. It's sick. That's the only makeup requirement at all. It's just you have a black sword through your eye. All right. We'll get right into the skills. Reavers can Brotherhood. Your sense of dedication and honor to your allies in combat imparts upon you two separate powers. Brotherhood, which is free to use at any time. Any compulsion or command to harm your allies may be resisted with Brotherhood. This does not apply to Berserker or similar effects. The Reaver is not considered his own ally for the purposes of this immunity. So if somebody enslaves a Reaver and they go kill your buddies, you can just say Brotherhood, and you just ignore that command. Which is sick. It's sweet when it comes up. Berserk is kind of different. You're like not in control of yourself. But if somebody else is in control of you and they tell you to fight your buddies, then Brotherhood works. And then there's some specific sentence here to stop you from attacking yourself. Like so if you have a if you command somebody to unalive themselves, if you're like crumple yourself, and this does not work for the purposes of you are not considered your own ally. So you can like if they get control of you and they say crumple yourself, you crumple yourself. I think is how that works. I could be wrong. And then they also get rally, which is sick. Remove fear voice radius 5 and 5. With the shout of authority and confidence, you may wash away all existing fear effects on the battlefield. Unnatural dispel fear voice radius, which is sick. This is an amazing skill, and it's one of the few voice radiuses that are in the rulebook and like just in the flat rulebook. that you get to see as a player. Uh, it's awesome, dope skill. And it's tough to remove fear. So as a Nullifidian, there's currently, at the moment of recording, in the rulebook, there is no actual way for a Nullifidian to dispel fear if he gets a fear effect on him. Because there are, like we saw Paladin, there's unnatural fear that can be thrown, and that would affect a Nullifidian. It's not a spell. And so, like, having Reavers around is sick because they can remove fears from people. And that's kind of a tough thing to do. Awaken, Awaken probably does hit fear, but yeah. Anyway, or it doesn't. I specifically think it doesn't hit fear. Uh, Extend stamina. Reaver gains more armor based on their weapon mastery and knavery. The Reaver's experience in battle is given endurance beyond what most warriors can hope to match. You are always immune to weakness effects, and you gain a bonus to your existing armor value. So it assumes you're wearing armor. So this isn't like Eldritch Trickster where you get a set of magic armor on top of your armor. This combines with your armor. Yeah, no. If you have no worn armor value, you gain no bonus armor. So you have to be wearing armor. Uh, to existing armor value equal to half of the total of your combined weapon mastery and knavery pools. So if you have 20 armor plus 50, there's some math. So if you had 100 armor, and there's multiple different ways to go about getting 100 armor, then you had 50 and 50, you would get 50 more armor on top. It's very simple math. This looks complicated, but it's just very simple math. You get a half of your two pools, your two lower pools, and you get to add that to your armor, which is sweet. It's free armor for 5 build. It's awesome. All right, combine weapon mastery and knavery 10 build. This works how you think it works, and it works how you want it to work. When the Reaver has enough skills, he can combine both the lower pools, weapon mastery and knavery, into one universal pool of physical energy, usable for offensive or defensive skills. So that means you get to use your weapon mastery for knavery, and you get to use your knavery for weapon mastery. That's essentially what this means. But it's just one generic pool. Since it's possible to use adept pool points to perform weapon mastery skills and rogue points to perform knavery skills, it makes it possible to use all 4 pools as one great resource of fighting ability to draw upon. So this allows rogue. Yeah, so this doesn't let you do it for uppers, so you can't spend rogue to do adept stuff, but you could spend adept stuff to do knavery stuff, right? And you could spend rogue stuff to do weapon mastery stuff. It is only necessary to purchase this skill once, and there's no per-use cost. You're not paying anything extra for doing this, which is super neat. It just makes it easy. It makes math easier. It's like I don't just have 50 knavery and 50 weapon mastery. Now I just have 100, and I got to remember what my 100 is, right? I'm pulling from that 100. I'm not pulling from 50 and a 50. It just makes it simple and easy. I don't know how this interacts specifically with foci. I do not know if this allows you to put weapon mastery in a knavery foci or vice versa. That's a question to ask. I assume it doesn't. I would assume it doesn't work that way. So there are reasons to still keep track of knavery and weapon mastery specifically, but when you're in a big fight, it's irrelevant essentially, which is sweet. Enhanced strength. It's just a regular enhanced strength. Let's see. You can purchase it 4 times for 4 build. So for 16 build, you can get 4 strength, which is just dope. It's good. 4 strength is neat, and it makes you able, if you didn't have strength as a base race for some reason, like if you were a folk, you're getting strength this way, and you can get 4, which is good because there are certain spells that require 2 and 4. It's like 2, 4, and 6, 8 are like the important strength numbers to hit for resisting certain effects. But yeah, getting straight to 4 is sweet, and it will stack from your racial strength as well. So if you have +2, if you were, for example, a Nullifidian and you have +2 strength, you would be at 6. And if you were a Flesh Golem and you had like +4 or whatever, then you would be at 8. Massive Strike. So we saw this as a racial for trolls, where they can buy it 4 times and swing for massive 4 times. Reavers essentially get to pay 1 and 1 to make it massive. Oh, okay, yeah, massive. So as far as I've been covering it in the rulebook so far, I thought massive was at +4, but it's actually +8 to resist, which makes massive even better. So basically, it means if you don't have +8 strength, you can't block this. Uh, you can still defend against it. A massive strength may. Yeah, you can't even use skill besides or be dodge phasers or by repel weapon spell. Yeah, so you can't. May only be parried by. Yeah, so you can't use lower against massives. So if you did like massive 100, you can't master parry 100. You have to. It has to be upper. It has to be adept or rogue. So you can't use lowers for massives or absorbed by like a spell, basically, because repel weapon is pretty good. If the victim has +8 strength or more, they may use normal methods of defense. Oh, so if you do have +8 strength, you can use lowers. That's the thing. That's important to know how massive works, and this is like honestly, this is the definition of massive. I'm pretty sure this was here before the racial stuff was a thing. And then you get weapon of choice, and it's only 1 and 1, so you pay 2 upper to swing massive for a given skill, which is sick. Being able to just add massive to something is very relevant a lot of the time. Reaver weapon of choice. Reaver gains special abilities based on their chosen weapon. So this is really neat, and you get to pick it. You get to purchase it once. The Reaver gains the ability to attune to his favored weapon to his spirit, so as to not lose it if should he fall in battle. The skill needs only be purchased once, but may be used multiple times, provided the pre-use cost is paid. The weapon of choice is considered spirit linked and will dissipate with the Reaver should they crumble. It is also immune to disarm. It gets +3 damage when used by the Reaver, and the Reaver gains benefits based on the weapon type. All reductions, etc., only apply when you're using that weapon of choice. Although it is not possible to link more than one weapon at a time, it is possible to break the link and respend points as indicated in the chart to link a different weapon. To link a different weapon, you must hold the weapon and say Reaver weapon of choice. So this 3 and 3 cost is associated the first time you do it and anytime you want to change your weapon, essentially. But you can look at this list. Let's see what sword does. -1 to slay and death blow is pretty solid here. Like that's pretty good. That's often what you're going to be looking at. Hammer specifically for Vorpal Slay is sweet. I've seen dagger for parries. Let's see. Buckler for knavery deflects, self only. That's interesting. Yeah, so this is very much like a hey, what type of thing do you want to be fighting with as a Reaver? And you're gonna get a lot of unique stuff based off of what you're fighting with. Sword is solid, man. -1 to slays is pretty good. Deathblow, you're gonna be using slay a lot more than Deathblow, especially when you have a combined lower pool and you just like, oh yeah, I can slay whenever I want, as opposed to death. Like you can use knavery to slay, you're gonna use knavery to slay every time. So, but just -1. Staff is cool. All deflex is sweet. And this knavery and rogue, so you're looking at a -1 to auto deflect, which that means this is interacting with rogue. Let's see, -1 to parries, same thing here with the dagger. Cudgels, waylay. I've seen goblin, and goblins get -1 to waylay, and waylay is a 3-cost skill, and they don't have an inherent reduction. So, a goblin reavers with cudgels get to waylay for 1, which is hot. Yeah. Anyway, Reaver choice, sweet, 6 skill. Base Reaver, 6 skills. Pretty low, but this is exactly what you want to be doing if you're a fighting guy. If you are a fighting dude, this is exactly what you want to be doing, and you don't feel bad about any of these skills, and you don't really need a whole lot more. Now, Elder Reaver. All right, we're getting into Elder Reaver. This is interesting. Reavers can fortitude. They can keep themselves from going unconscious due to loss of body. When struck with a damage or an effect that would place the Reaver at 0 body or below, they may call fortitude to immediately regain consciousness at 1 body. This skill prevents the Reaver from briefly losing unconsciousness, so prevents combat. It prevents your combat duration stuff from being dropped. So if you drop in the middle of combat and you had like a Dance of the Adept going, your dance drops as well. It doesn't matter if they pick you back up and like you still have to like you spent dance and you're no longer dancing. This prevents that. Fortitude does not prevent status effects from affecting the Reaver, so sleep, waylay, death would prevent skill use. Fortitude may not be used to return to one body. Oh yeah, so you can be conscious, but you're still in terms of your skills, you're still technically unconscious. I think. The status examples would prevent skill use. Fortitude may not be used to return the body to stop from becoming dead or stop from crumbling. Oh, okay, yeah. So this doesn't mean that if you get hit with a fight ender like sleep, this doesn't work against sleep, is essentially what this is saying. The skill has a per use cost and must be used per effect that would be placed in the Reaver below. For example, with 200 you could use Fortitude to. So if you get hit with like a take this 10 times and all of those effects would drop you below 1, you have to pay for each of the 10 times. It's not a I did it once. Glyphs are weird and glyphs are relevant. That's why they had to bring it up there. But cool skill. You're an Elder Reaver, so it's harder to make you drop. Even more enhanced strength, and this time it's only 3 1-to-1 ratios here, by the way. What does this say? So 1-to-1 ratio, 1-to-1 ratio. You must have the 4 base Reaver strength to be able to purchase this skill. The skill may be purchased up to 6 times. So you're gonna get as a Elder Reaver, you have a total of 10 enhanced strength. Stacking still with your racial stuff. All right, Rallying Cry. Reaver can extend combat duration effects for themselves or others. Rallying Cry Self 1-1. You may extend your active combat durations effects for 1 minute. Each time you do, you must shout something heroic, stoic, or vainglorious, depending on your character's roleplay. Ally 3-3. You may extend this active combat duration to effects on an ally for 1 minute. Each time you do, you must be absolutely clear about who you are targeting and shout something encouraging or provoking to them, depending on your character's roleplay. So, in adventures, there are times when you're walking through a cave and you might be in a cave fighting something and you dance with the adept and then you kill all the given guys and maybe 10 feet down the road in the further into the cave there's another group of bad guys that you encounter. Instead of paying Dance of the Adept for each fight, you can extend the combat duration for upwards of 1 minute. So that way you have that same dance when you're going, like, it's still active while you're going to fight the other guys, the other bad guys, like further down in the cave. And it's relevant and it does come up like a lot of the time. So being able to for 1-to-1 keep your dance going is pretty good, super solid. That's like the main use of this skill is Dance of the Adept is a combat duration, and Snake's Revenge too for Rogue. Enhanced weapon of choice. You get a Fury, the respective things that you do, and you get the bonuses of the weapon selected as Spear linked, undisarmable swings plus C. You also gain a bonus from wielding the weapon based on this type. Oh, so yeah, so if you get to double down on you can pick the same thing and double down on something, or you can pick an additional thing and Fury one thing and have the side effect of another. I think bonuses stack where applicable. You can Fury Slay at -1. Hot. So if you're playing a race like Human, where you have a reduction to Slay, because you have -1 to weapon mastery skills, and Slay is a weapon mastery skill. Slay is 10, -1 from Human, -1 from Sword, so you're doing it for 8, and then you're Furying it, so you do, where 3 Slays would be 10 typically, you're doing 3 Slays for 16. I think, is if I'm doing my math right there, because you're getting 2 reductions, which is way better than, like, it's better than regular Fury where you would be Furying for 20, right? So you get to save yourself 4 pool there. Sick. Super cool skill. We talked about Fury with Eldritch Trickster, but essentially it's when you do 3 things, you say Fury afterwards, and then you only pay for 2 of the 3 things that you did. That's all it is. Pretty solid. Mistwalk. This is literally the same skill that all of the Mistwalking races as elders get. But note, keep in mind, if you're an elder of your race, you can't be an augment. And if you're an augment, you can't be an elder of your race. So far, this is the only augment that has the ability to Mistwalk. If anybody's playing an augment and they're not a Reaver, or hint, Worm as well also gets this, I'm pretty sure. Only Reavers and Worms get to Mistwalk as a augment, which is sick. There's a like we've talked about with the Nullifidian video, there's a ton of roleplay with Mistwalking, and the best Reaver that I know of uh does specifically a bunch of stuff in the mist. They're very much in the mist. Very much is a we're not magic, we're fighting type of place. It's a very much like Reavers and Mistwalking go hand in hand. When you Mistwalk, you encounter Reavers a lot because or Elder Reavers a lot because Mistwalking is cool and fun, and a lot of the Reavers like to be in there because there's a lot of fighting in the mist. Uh, Reaver Elder Radius Slay, baby. For 8 and 8, you can Radius Slay. You heard me right. One must plant his front foot and swing his weapon over his head while saying Massive Radius Slay. Anyone within weapon's reach while pivoting on the planted foot will be struck with a Massive Slay. Cost is 8/8. Massive Radius. Oh, it's also massive. Oh, that's so good. Cost is 8 and 8. This is an amazing skill. Okay? And when somebody does this, typically there's like a hold because it's such an important skill. Like a massive radius slay is nuts. So, and typically they have a long sword, so their sword is like pretty big radius. So they'll typically call a hold and be like, all right, who's within weaponry? Who here is eating a massive slay right now? It's a super cool skill, and it's like a good way to finish off Reaver. This video is only 21 minutes so far, and we're already done with Elder. This is probably the shortest video out of all the augments, and it's for a dang good reason. Because all you're doing is fighting the crap out of things, okay? You're just fighting, and you're fighting, and you're fighting, and it's purely for the fun of fighting. That's Reaver in a nutshell. They don't need a whole lot, and honestly, the skills that they do get are sick and important to them, and they bring enough roleplay that you can spend a bunch of time fighting and then also do roleplay stuff. Mistwalking, in and of itself, is a ton of fun and is a ton of lore and stuff you can dive into, and that's like really carrying, in my opinion, Elder Reaver. But yeah, you get cool. I mean, if you're coming to be a fighter in Shifted Lands, you want a cool sword and you want cool fighting abilities, and that's what Reaver gives you. And it's sick, and it makes fighting even more convenient by combining your pools. Um, it's super sweet. Yeah, that was Reaver, man. I'd love to play a Reaver someday. All the Reavers I met are super cool, and they're typically into fighting stuff. So, if you don't want to fight stuff, don't be a Reaver. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. This is not. There's no option. If you're a Reaver, you're fighting stuff. You don't page and play a Reaver unless you're like actually like having a injury and stuff, like, and you still want to play your character. That makes sense. But Reavers are awesome. Typically, I learned all of my combat skills from Reavers because a lot of Reavers will just like, yeah, I'll teach combat stuff for free, or I'll teach combat stuff like for cheap. Uh, yeah, Reavers are awesome. I love playing. I love Reavers. I've NPC'd Reavers multiple times. Reavers are sick, man. I love Reavers. All right, going on to the last one, Worm. Moving on.